Welcome to the MEP Academy. We're going to cover general layout of construction drawings from civil to structural to architectural to mechanical, HVAC, electrical, plumbing. We're going to cover them all and talk about a little bit of each of them. This is the cover sheet. This shows where the project is located within the state, the county, or the city, and it's shown in this outlined area here that is dotted, and then they'll show a larger blow up of that area. On this side here, it says this project is located here. You can see there's some lakes around here. There's an airport. Here's the main highways. So this will give you a general idea where the project is located. This drawing also shows the index of all the drawings that are located in this construction set. You have the cover sheet, which we're looking at now. Then you have the G, which is the project overall site plan. And then you have the C drawings, which are the civil drawings. You have the L drawings, which are the landscape. The A, which is the architectural drawings. And then over here, you have the S drawings, which are the structural drawings, and then the M drawings, the mechanical drawings, which will be your HVAC. And this particular nomenclature also uses M for the plumbing drawings instead of P. So the plumbing drawings are located in the M drawings. And then you have the E drawings, which are the electrical drawings. So this cover sheet shows the general location of the project and all the drawings that are located in this construction set. This is one of the civil drawings showing the parking area grading plan. You can see these are parking stalls, and these over here are handicap parking stalls. And on the civil grading plan, you'll notice all these squiggly lines. And what these indicate is the different elevations. So the closer the lines are together, like these here, the steeper the hill is, or the grade is. So this is 7120 and 7122, they're really close. As you can see over here, if we started at the bottom coming from the road, it's 7105, 7106, 7107, 7108. That means we're driving up a slight grade up this hill. 7110, 7111, 12, 7113, 14, 15. So you can see the distance between here is greater than the other one we showed earlier. And so 71, 17, 18, 19, 19 seems to be the top. So we've come up a little hill, and then as you go around the parking lot here, you can see now the numbers start to come down. 7118, 7117, 7116. So now we're starting to grade down. We're coming back down this parking structure, and till we get over here, 7110, 7109, 7107, and we're back down. So this parking area that they're building is up on a slight hill. And so that's what the civil drawings are going to show you, is the grading, this parking area on this grading plan. Here's another civil drawing. This one here is a sewer plan and profile for the site. This happens to be a road. And if we look at this closer, we can see that there's those grade lines, 7,000, 7,010, and then here is the road. And you can see this side of the road, 730, 740, 750. It starts going uphill. So this road is cut into the hillside, and then here is manhole number 8 and manhole number 7. And then if we look below, you can see the profile that they've drawn for those manholes. So here's the profile, and what it shows is this is like an elevation view. So this is the top of the road coming down the hill, and this is the pipe. It's hard to see, it's in that mesh of lines, but it'll show the invert elevation of the pipe in the manhole. So you can see it's an 8-inch PVC sewer pipe that's running down this hill, and it's sloped at certain percentages. But here's that manhole 8 that's flush with the drive, with the pavement, and manhole number 7. And it gives you the invert elevations of 7025 in and out. So the elevation is, the invert elevation is to either the bottom of the manhole or the bottom of the pipe. And in and out would be the bottom of the pipe coming in and the bottom of the pipe going out. So you can see coming in is much higher, a little bit higher than the pipe going out. That keeps the sewer moving. This is one of the landscape drawings. This shows the building outline in this dark black and the patio area here, some shrubs in here. It gives a list of what they want and the quantities, and then they show, I'll zoom in over here, you can see that they want these 3 large, it looks like trees. You can see the outline of the circle here. They're going to be, if you look at this line, these dots, this goes to 3 parsley hawthorns, and then they got 53 wood ferns. So the landscape drawing shows where all the plants, bushes, shrubs, where they're to be planted, how many they want. This is another landscape drawing. This shows the irrigation layout to water the plants, the shrubs, the trees. And if we look at this a little closer, we can see that here's the main controller, and then it runs along, goes under a PVC sleeve underneath the sidewalk there so it doesn't get damaged, and then it runs over to a controller which says it'll do 1.9 GPM of water in a minute. So that's a minute, and here's for an hour. If you let it run, it'll be 114 gallons per hour. And then tied to that controller, number 9, is a flexible PVC drip hose. So this runs around the plants and the shrubs. You can see how long that flex hose goes for that one controller, all the way out to here and ends. And then the water pipe picks up another controller, which then feeds another drip line around all these pipes. So it goes around the building picking up controllers. You can see controller 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and each one of them has its corresponding flexible PVC drip hose that goes and makes sure all the shrubs and trees are fed with water. Okay, this is the architectural plan. This shows the first floor of this building, and down here is the key plan. So if you look at this building, this is the outline, but on this drawing is only shown the hatched area of that building. So this key plan gives you an idea of where what's shown on this drawing is in the building. So it's only part of the building. You see there's much more of the building left that will be shown on other drawings. But what you can see on this drawing is you have your bathroom. You can see the water closets and the door to the water closets, which will be shown on the plumbing better. But this gives dimensions. You have dimension lines. Let me zoom in on this and you can see better. So you see there's a window here. It says it's 3 feet, 9 feet of wall, another 3-foot window. You can see better the water closets. This is the handicap stall. It's larger. Here's your urinals in the men's bathroom, sinks, and then out the door. This is a chase. This is a plumbing chase for the maintenance guys. This will be all pipes back here for the plumbing. And then over here is the women's bathroom. You got the janitor's closet over here, which has a janitor's sink. But you'll see that you have these cuts. This says that you'll find a detail or a section of this wall cut on drawing A15, detail number E. And the same over here. This is, you're going to get a detail of what that looks like. Is if you were standing here, you'll look at detail C looking this way as the direction of this is pointing. For C is pointing this way, and if you turn around and you look this way, you're going to look at detail D. Same over here. You got A is going to show you what this wall looks like over here, and if you're standing here looking in the direction of B, which is this way, you're going to see what this wall looks like. So that's how the architect can show what he wants for the finishes on these walls by giving these details. Now you'll also have a section cut, which will cut the whole building and give you a section of the building, which they're showing the match line here, C sheet A3 for continuation. So this is where he cuts the drawing, is this dark line here. It's the match line. That means you'll find on drawing A3 the continuation of this building going that way. This is another architectural plan. So this is a renovation, so it's going to show new and existing. So this is a renovation, but what this does have is a section view. So it's going to cut the building right here. It's going to cut the building along this line. You see the other end of it here. And what it's saying is, on that particular drawing, you'll find detail B that'll show you a section of what this looks like, cutting the building along this line and looking this way, the way the arrow's pointing. So I'll show you that section in a minute. You can see it's of the auditorium, right? And you can see the end of that cut is there along that line. So we'll look at that detail, but I'll show you a few other things before you get there. Just as we looked on the other drawing, you have all these views. View A looking that way, B that way, C and D. So the architect can give you an idea what it looks like. Here again is a different nomenclature. So what this says is A2, which is this drawing. So this detail is for this drawing, and it's found on A36, architectural drawing number 36, detail A. So you got detail C. So you can see this detail here and this detail here are the same. So all he's showing you, he's going to show you what this wall is made of. So he wants to make sure you get the walls right. Here's another cut of a wall. But out here you'll see A. So A is going to show you what the building looks like from the outside standing there. So we'll look at that elevation too. Let's move over to that. So here's the elevation view from outside. What this will give you, there might be multiple plans on this depending on how many sides of the building there is, but you can see this is the east elevation, and detail A, that shows you what the east looks like. You can see stone veneer, he's got some columns here, and then here he's going to show the same side, east elevation, but without the arcade and the courtyard walls, because this gets in the way of the view of what the walls are behind. So you can see the side of the building without that obstruction. So you can see he's got windows, here's your doors, double doors. So, and then here's the north elevation is at the bottom, and then there'll be several drawings of this, but you can see the column lines here that will match up with your floor plan. Column 3, column 2. Here he's giving you heights if you're trying to figure out heights for your piping or your electrical conduits, your sheet metal ducts. You can always look at elevation views or the section views, which I'll show you now that they cut the auditorium with. Okay, here's the architectural plan for the building sections. So this is where those cuts were, where he shows you, you'll stand and look in a certain direction. As you can see, here's that one we saw on the drawing of the cut. So here's the auditorium. As you can see, here's the seats. People sit in the seats, and over here is your stage or your screen that people watch. You can see the suspended ceiling up here, and here's your column lines. Here's another section. This is section A, lobby reception area. You can see what it looks like inside. Lockers, these are the different rooms. This is the structural foundation and floor framing plan. So the best you can get out of these when you're doing mechanical work is to check the beam size to make sure you have clearances. In this case, to read the beam size, all you have to do is look at the designation. I'll blow this up here. You can see this is a W12 by 26. Well, what does that mean? Basically, it means it's 12-inch deep beam, and it weighs 26 pounds for every foot. And then over here you can see this TS 5 by 5 by a quarter. So right there on the footing, this is a footing. So maybe concrete in the ground that's holding this tube steel. This is tube steel. It's 5 inches by 5 inches by quarter inch thick. And they're tying these beams into them that are 12 inches deep and weigh 26 pounds per foot. So you can see from this footing to this footing and to this footing, that beam runs along there tied to these tube steels. And over here you got a double joist. So for the structural, most of the time you're just checking to make sure your stuff will fit, and you just got to learn the nomenclature. But otherwise it's similar to the architectural. It's going to show the column lines. These will match what's on the architectural, should match the mechanical and electrical and plumbing, the distances between columns, and that will get you started at least on the basics for reading the structural. All right, here's one of the HVAC mechanical plans. This will show all the air conditioners, the heaters, the sheet metal duct, and the piping related to HVAC. So you can see here we have the equipment. There's the tag MUA1, that's makeup air unit 1. Here's makeup air unit number 2. So basically that's bringing outside air into this, through this louver from outdoors into the sheet metal plenum, through the sheet metal into this unit where the fan is. The fan's in here, so it's sucking air from outdoors and it's blowing it through this ductwork through here. And here's a fire smoke damper by that symbol there, through the duct, and then it comes out a grill here. So if I blow that up, you can see that that grill in the ceiling of the women's room is a 15 by 15 grill, and it's giving the room 600 CFM. So, and there's the duct, it's 18 by 12. There's that fire smoke damper. Here's another one here. So this is a fire rated wall here. That's how you can tell. It's got these dampers in it. And over here is more dampers, so that wall's evidently rated. Here's a fan coil number 5. So here's the return. So this fan coil is in the attic space. It's hidden above the ceiling, and the return pops off the bottom of the fan coil and goes to the room. And supply off the front. This is a flex connector for vibration because the fan's in here. This helps absorb some vibration. Here's the duct, and here's a grill on the ceiling, 9 by 9 by 300. And over here you'll have a transfer grill that brings air into the room. Here's an exhaust fan in the men's room, exhausting above the water closet. It's the water closet under there, 150 CFM, through that duct, all the way down and out the building. Here's the exterior wall. Here's a soffit louver, a 12 by 12 soffit louver as it throws the air out. Here's a section view you'd want to look at to make sure he's going to show you what this looks like, this soffit detail. Here's another mechanical plan. This is a section view. This is of the auditorium, and you can see the auditorium section view. You can see that there's an air handler on the floor, a floor-mounted air handler, basically an air conditioner, and then one above the ceiling of the auditorium. Remember, this is a section view, so what you're seeing here is this is the foundation. It's drawn in kind of hokey there. Here's a fire main showing above here, but here's your ducts. Here's one of those fire smoke dampers, and he's going to give you a detail of it. It's going to be shown on M16, detail F. But you can see all the sheet metal ducts in there above the ceiling. He's got the fire main showing up there and more ducts. This attic space, this ceiling space is congested. And you can see up here an exhaust louver. So one of this is an exhaust duct throwing exhaust out of the building. And remember your designations. This slash, single slash, is usually indicative of a return duct. And your X, your crosshash, is indication of a supply duct. So you got supply coming off the front of the air handler, and you have return here coming off the top of the air handler with these flex connectors to absorb any vibration from this unit. And you can see the outline of the building. Here's the exterior wall. Here's the roof, right? Here's some kind of architectural skylight. But you can see this section view is very congested, and here's your duct. So the way you read the duct is the first dimension, 14 by 48. The 14 is the dimension you're looking at. The 48 would be going the other way. 20 by 32, you're looking at the 20-inch dimension. So whatever your scale is for this section, that should match what the first dimension is shown there. Okay, this is another mechanical drawing. This is the flow diagram. So this will show you all the valving and the equipment associated with either your chilled water system, your heating hot water system. And let me blow up this a little bit here so we can see more. So he's calling this a chilled water, but this is our heating hot water system. You can see here you got boilers. So this is the heating hot water side. You got these boilers sitting on concrete pads on the ground. And here's the supply coming off. You got a flow switch, a shut-off valve, a thermometer, and it's tying into the main. Here's the main. So you got two boilers feeding this main that goes, and here's an air separator just to get air out of the system. Here's your pumps over here, pump 3 and pump 4. This is all 4-inch connection. This is the suction side. This is discharge, so your water's going up and out and feeds the system. So this is supply, hot water supply, and here's return coming back from the building, hot water return. And so basically this diagram is to show you all the parts and pieces and how they tie together, some of the valving he wants. You can see the makeup water here for the system. So the plumber, as you can see here, 3/4 inch makeup water, refer to plumbing drawings. So the plumber will bring you the makeup water and you'll tie in. You guys will coordinate where the tie-in is. This is the plumbing plan. This shows the domestic water. They'll show the sewer on a different drawing in this particular engineered set. Sometimes they're shown on the same, but it helps to make it less congested if you separate the domestic water from the sewer system. So this drawing shows the domestic water, and if I zoom in over here, you can see the water. Here goes to an exterior hose bib. So this is, you can connect your hose outside, wash down the patio, wash the bushes, whatever. And over here, this is a refrigerator, so it's got a water connection maybe for your ice maker. There are showers, right? So you got hot and cold water for the shower. And down here you got the water closet, so you got water for flushing the water closet. And then the pipe runs in the ceiling, above the ceiling, down the wall, behind the wall, and feeds these urinals and this last water closet. And then over here you got hot and cold for these lavs. These are your sinks. Again, it's running in the above the attic, above the ceiling, and then these circles indicate it's dropping down into the wall. And here's more water closets, more sinks, more showers. Here's a janitor service sink. And if we go down here, we're going to see this is where the water main comes in, and it'll split off and it'll feed the fire system. And then here's a pneumatic tank, and then it goes and splits. Right here is where it splits, and this is going to go and make the hot water. Here's your water heater. So now cold water line feeds the water heater and you get hot water. Now you got hot water and cold water feeding the building. Okay, this is another plumbing drawing. This is the waste and vent plan. This will show all the waste pipe and the vents. So if we start over here in this corner, this is where the main waste line, it's dotted. That means it's underground. So if we look at this, we can see this is where it comes into the building. This usually ties in 5 feet outside the building is where the responsibility of the plumber is. And then the rest of this will show in the civil drawing. Over here, this is FCO. This is a floor clean out. This is in case there's a clog, they can clean it out. This will be on the finished floor. As you see, this is in the courtyard. So there may be a tile finish, whatever the finish is there. And then it goes up and continues, and it feeds the waste for these water closets, urinals. You got a floor drain in the men's room and the women's room. So that waste pipe is picking up all that waste from the sinks. And once again, you have a floor clean out. So you can run a snake through here if this line was to get clogged. And then you have the vents. These are the skinny dotted lines here coming off to vent the waste. And then it will go up through the roof at some point right there. 4-inch vent through roof. And that will vent that whole line there. As you see, there's a branch that comes this way, and it's underground, it's dotted. And you can see he put a sleeve through the foundation beam. So they had to cut the beam for the foundation to get that pipe through there. And then once again, you see a sleeve through beam. And then we run underground, then we pop up and we pick up these sinks. Here's your water closet, here's a shower. So everything gets drained through that pipe. Even your kitchen sink over here. And then another branch, all this underground. So all this has to be dug out and this pipe has to be buried. And then you can see there's got a remote sink over here, but then off the top, and then this vent is going to run through the ceiling and tie into all the other vents off all the other fixtures, and then it's going to find one spot and then it's going to go up. Here it is, 3-inch vent through roof. So you got your underground waste and you got your vent above the ground. And that's basically what's going to show on all your plumbing drawings. It's going to pick up all your plumbing fixtures so that the waste and the water can drain out into the sewer system. Now this is another plumbing drawing. This is an isometric view of the waste and vent. This is really helpful when you're doing an estimate or you're doing a takeoff. It helps you visualize all the parts and pieces of the plumbing system. So it's basically the same thing we looked at the plan view, but now it's an isometric of that same view. So you can see this is where we came in. The main was coming in, where we're going to tie into the civil. Here's that floor clean out. So you can see it's coming up to the floor. And here's that main line going through, picking up these WCs, which are the water closets. Here it gives you all the sizes. So it's a 3-inch going over to the water closet. And then you can see the vent coming off of here. 2-inch vent. And then the vent through the roof, which we talked about, the 4-inch vent. So you can see all this is in the ceiling space, and these are most likely in the wall, these vertical, coming from these underground pipes. These dark dashed ones are the waste underground. You can see he comes over here, he picks up a water closet, then he goes over here and he picks up the floor drain that's sitting on the drain. So when the janitor cleans the bathroom and maybe he uses a hose and washes it down, all that water is going to go down that drain. So the isometric is a nice overall view of what is going on with the waste and vent pipe. So you can see this waste here, this branch coming off the main, and then it has a branch here underground. Then it's going to pop up and it's going to pick up a lab on one side and a lab on the other. So this is probably a back-to-back lab. There's a lab in one room possibly and a lab in another, or they can be in the same room. But you got 2 labs, and then you got the vent that's allowing those sinks to function properly. That will also tie into the main vent going out the roof. Here's the fire protection plan. It's a very simple plan. You can see over here outside the building there's a fire department connection for their hoses if they need to pressurize the system. Here are the sprinkler heads in each room, each one designed to cover a certain area, and the pipes running to each of the rooms with each of their sprinkler heads. All this designed per code, and a sleeve through a masonry wall. Very simple. Okay, here's one of the electrical plans. This is actually the site plan. So you can see the buildings over here. Here's the main conduit feeding the electrical. It's a 4-inch PVC Schedule 80 conduit. And they have a nice diagram over here that we can look at. It gives an overall of what's going on. So we can see you got a transformer here by the power company and a meter by the power company, and then that's where we'll pick up. And you got your MDP. This is your main distribution panel. This is a cabinet that houses and separates the subsidiary or branch circuits, in addition to providing each circuit with protective fuses or circuit breakers. And then you can see feeding panel A here. It says that's feeder schedule 1. So you can see that that line going from the main distribution panel over to panel A has 4 number 3 wires. So basically this is telling you how many wires and what size that are in the conduit. So it's a 2-inch conduit that holds these wires. There's number 4 ground. Number 2 feeds panel B. Again, the quantity of wires and the size and the conduit size. So that's coming from the main distribution panel, feeding all these panels. Here's another indication of a transformer. And here's some trenching details they're showing on this drawing. But back over here, you can see that that 4-inch comes in to there's the main distribution panel, and you can see coming out of there are all these feeding these other panels. Here's panel boards A, B, C, and D. So coming out of there feeds those panels and other panels. And you can see the call out here. Here's panel board E way over here. So all this is underground conduits, and you can see it's a number 4. They're conductors in 1¼ inch PVC that's coming from the main distribution panel, which is fed from the meter from the utility company. Now we'll look at the lighting plan for the electrical. You can see that all these lights here are daisy chained together, and they have occupancy sensors so that if nobody's in the room, the light will go off. And they tie into, you see this designation CS8. So that will tell you which circuit in the panel board that feeds this lighting. So you see over here, here's the panel board schedule, CS schedule, which matches that, and it'll be circuit 8. This is the power plan. So you see on this one, it's similar to the other one, that you have these circuits that go to the panel board. This is circuit 2, 4, 6, 22, and 24. Over here, this is a hand dryer, and it's feeding to circuit 11 in the panel board. And over here, you got some outlets near the shower that are GFCI rated. And similar, you just have these common call outs for the actual circuit in the panel board. This one here, circuit 9. Subscribe for additional videos. We will be covering mechanical, electrical, and plumbing estimating, engineering, installation and fabrication best practices for mostly commercial construction and some residential.